Hi guys, I hope all of you are doing well today. This is a video, it's sort of been on my mind for a while to make it. It's a difficult one to make actually, but it's about ultimately mercy and forgiveness in our the American judicial system, whether it be the lack of mercy and forgiveness, or is it that we show too much mercy and forgiveness? What got me going on this, it started about a month ago when I saw a plea from Susan Atkins' husband on television with movie footage of Susan Atkins in bed, unable to move, unable to speak, with brain cancer, ready to die, basically. I mean, it was death was basically imminent at the time. And his plea was to have her come home and spend the last days of her life in bed, at home. She hadn't been out of prison for 40 years. Now, for those of you who don't know who Susan Atkins is, I'm going to make a note here. She, along with Charles Tex Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten, had a two-night killing spree in California, in the Los Angeles area, and committed the Tate and LaBianca murders under the direction of Charlie Manson. They were part of his family, and that's a long, convoluted story. But the fact of the matter is that all 5 of these people have been in prison for 40 years. Now, when I heard about her plea to go home at the time, I said to myself, absolutely not. These murders were so horrendous, and they were even compounded because they were random murders. They didn't even know their victims. And they were so, I mean, I won't go into the detail of how Sharon Tate was murdered, but or all of them, or the LaBiancas. It wasn't just like they were stabbed and left there. I mean, we are talking real savagery. So my thoughts at the time were absolutely not. She was coming up to a parole hearing the next day or two, and I was like, no, you get life. My thought was, you get life in prison, you do it. And then at the end of September, just a couple of weeks ago, she died. And I found myself thinking, well, she at that point was not a threat to society. I mean, part of me is like, maybe she should have been released and to go home. So I'm going to go down a little list. I want you guys to think about them and definitely leave comments, because I find myself changing how I feel about this subject. And then when I look at the statistics of, over 2 million people in prison in the United States, it just, everything compounds itself, and it's like, man, what is wrong? What is wrong here? But let me go down a little list. How far should a society's mercy and forgiveness go for people, especially for people convicted of horrendous crimes and sentenced to life? Now, these people too, let me tell you, all 5 of them were sentenced to death in 1969 and then, or 1970, and then in 1972 the death penalty was deemed unlawful in California, and they immediately got 7 to life, not like life without parole. They got 7 to life, so all of a sudden they were already ready to come before a parole board immediately. I mean, some of them have come before a parole board 18 times out of these 5 people. So, that's my first question. How far should mercy and forgiveness go for these type of criminals? Secondly, should there be a sliding judgment, like 7 to 15 years, or should a judgment be you're in jail for 15 years or you're in jail for 40 years? We'll go on to the next question. Should 7 to 15 years mean one is eligible for parole in, say, 2.5 years? Because that's what that means now. Now, you see, sometimes I feel as if there has to be an opening for a judgment to be re-examined. And then sometimes I'm like, hey, wait a minute, life without parole means life without parole. We'll go on to my next question. Do you think a sentence should be a sentence unless a retrial is called for, meaning new evidence has come forth? So in other words, I've murdered someone, I get 20 years to life. At 10 years, I can start going up in front of parole and literally get out and not serve my sentence without new evidence coming forth. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So, okay. Do you think the parole system works and helps those that have been rehabilitated, thus helping our society at large? My wife is a firm believer in rehabilitation, whereas I am skeptical about rehabilitation on the big scale of things. It just seems the statistics are not in favor that rehabilitation works. However, we're also talking about, it all involves the whole penal system in the United States also. Do you think plea bargains are worth it? Now, for instance, the reason I bring that up is during these murders of these 4 people, the driver of the car was Linda Kasabian, who, if I were driving a car for an armed robbery, I'm guilty of the armed robbery, yet the state cut her a deal. She's been out her whole life. And she went on both nights. There are some that argue she is as guilty as Leslie Van Houten or as Charlie Manson. But she's out and has been living in Vermont for the last 40 years. So, yeah, something to me sometimes, this whole plea bargain thing, this whole turning state evidence is questionable. I think it lets people who belong in jail go. Okay. These people were all sentenced to death, and in 1972 California overturned the death penalty, so each immediately was commuted to 7 years to life. Should it have been life without the possibility of parole? I personally think yes. I mean, you're sentenced to the death sentence, and that is overturned, you get life without parole. But, okay. And just to throw a curveball in, because I have a lot of gun control videos out there, for anti-gun control people, if people like these are paroled, I'll give you a very good example, actually. Another member of the Manson family was Squeaky Fromm. Now, Squeaky Fromm was convicted of attempted murder, trying to kill President Ford in 1975. This past August, she was just released. Should she be able to go out and purchase a weapon as soon as she's released? A lot of anti-gun control advocates believe that she actually should. So, that's it. I know it's a long video, and I hope I get some comments from you guys, because sometimes I'm really on the fence about this stuff. I'll talk to you later.